Okay, here we go. Number 16. 2m to the fourth power plus 40m cubed plus 8m squared divided by 8m squared. This is not one that we can use synthetic division with. So this is what I want you to do. I want you to write 8m squared under each term. Okay, and then you can just mark it out over here. Okay, because we're going to look at it, we're going to divide each term by 8m squared. Okay, so the first term, we have 2m to the fourth power over 8m to the second power. Just a little side note. What is m to the fourth times m to the second power equal? M to the sixth. What did you do with those exponents? Added them. Anytime you multiply variables, you add the exponents. 4 plus 2 is 6. So what do you think you're going to do when you divide variables? Subtract. So what is m to the fourth over m to the second equal? M to the second. Okay, when multiplying variables, you add the exponents. When dividing variables that are the same, you subtract their exponents. So let's look at this. What is 2 divided by 8 reduced to? 1 over 4, right? What's m to the fourth divided by m squared? M to the second. Okay, so we're done with the first term. We've simplified it. Now let's move on to the second. What is a positive 40 divided by a positive 8? A positive 5. And then what is m cubed divided by m squared? M to the first, and so can't you just write m? And then the last one, what's 8 divided by 8? Positive 1. What's m squared divided by m squared? M to the 0, which is 1, right? So you're done. Because do you really need to write another times 1? Will that change this one? No. So that's the final answer. And this is even unnecessary. You don't really have to write that one. That's what you would see as one of your choices. Okay, now turn to the next page. Number 17. I'm going to bring this 6k squared below each of the terms in that trinomial. Okay, and I'm just going to mark it out over here. Okay, now I'm going to simplify each one. I'm going to divide each one by 6k squared. What's 6 divided by 6? 1. What's k to the fourth divided by k to the second? K to the second. Okay, so we're good with the first part. What's a positive 18 divided by positive 6? Positive 3. What's k cubed divided by k squared? K to the first. You don't have to write the first power. Okay, for this one, what's 4 divided by 6? 2/3. What's k squared over k squared? K to the 0, which is 1. So you're done. And really, you don't have to write this one out here. That would be the final answer. Okay, so let's look at number 18. I'm going to divide each term in this trinomial by 10n. Okay, so let's look at the first one. We have 5 over 10, which is 1 1/2. We have n to the fourth over n to the first, which is n to the third. Okay, so we're done with that first part. Now we have, isn't that a positive 1n cubed? So isn't that a positive 1/10? What's n cubed over n to the first? N squared. Okay, so we're done with that one. Then plus, that's another 1 right there. So that's another 1/10. And then what's n squared over n? N. That's the final answer, but keep in mind, on a multiple choice test, none of those ones would be visible either. They're understood. So that's what you would be looking for. Okay, I want you to take a minute and try 19 and 20 by yourself. Number 19. The first thing I need to do is divide each of these by 6x squared. Okay, and then I'm going to mark it out down here because because I wrote it underneath each one. Do not start talking. Close your mouth. Then I'm going to do them one at a time. 12 divided by 6 is 2. What is x to the fourth, Cameron, divided by x squared? X squared. Okay, then plus, what is 6 divided by 6? 1. What is x cubed divided by x squared? X. Okay, and then plus, what is 24 divided by 6? What's x squared divided by x squared? 1, so no need to write it, because 4 times 1 will still be 4. And this was even unnecessary, so that's the answer you should have gotten. Okay, now let's look at this one. We're going to divide each of those terms in the trinomial by 6v cubed. Okay, so now I'm going to simplify each one. What's 18 divided by 6? 3. What's v cubed divided by v cubed? 1, and 3 times 1 will still be 3, right? So they just basically cancel each other out. Plus, what's 2 divided by 6? 1/3. What's v cubed divided by, v to the second divided by v to the third? V to the negative 1, right? And then plus 2 over 6 is another 1/3. What's v to the first divided by v cubed? Right. However, that is not the final answer, because back in Unit 2A, we learned that you can never leave a negative exponent in your answer. Does anybody remember how to make it positive? What? To make it positive, all you do is move it to the bottom. Okay, so this one would be 1 over 3v squared. And now that 1 became positive, so you don't have to write it. And the 2 became positive 2. Y'all remember that now? Yeah. Okay, so that is one thing we're learning today. Now we're moving on to these, where we're going to simplify each and state the excluded values. I'm going to skip around because after teaching it first period, I'm going to skip around. I feel like it might be easier. I'm well aware that there are going to be many of you that get confused, but talking and complaining is not going to help it. Okay, so just stay quiet and keep paying attention. Let's start with number 23. Okay, my goal is to simplify this, okay? How can I simplify that numerator? What can I do with that? Starts with an F. Factor. I can factor that with the bubble method by looking for two numbers that multiply to 18 and add to 11. What two numbers do that? A positive 9 and a positive 2, right? And then, of course, to get n squared, you would need an n at each one. Because think about it. If I did n times n, that's n squared. N times 2 is 2n. 9 times n is 9n, so together they make 11n, and then 9 times 2 is 18. I'm basically unfoiling it. That's what factoring is. You're unfoiling it. And now that's over n plus 9. Okay. Now I'm going to find my excluded value. The excluded value is the number that would make the denominator become 0. And you cannot have a denominator of 0. Look what happens when I try to type in a denominator of 0. Okay, like I'll type in 3 divided by 0. Divide by 0, error. You cannot divide by 0. So for that reason, you can never have 0 in your denominator. What number would I need to plug in right here to make the denominator become a 0? Negative 9, right? Because a negative 9 plus 9 would be 0. So my excluded value, which I'm going to write over here like this, is negative 9. Because if I were to plug in a negative 9 and add 9 to it, wouldn't I get 0 on the bottom and then I'm going to get an error? Okay, now at this point we can continue simplifying. See how the numerator has an n plus 9 and so does the denominator? That means we can cross those out. And that leaves n plus 2. Okay? Now, just a side note, don't write this down. What is the reduced form, the simplest form of 3 over 6? 1/2. Now, they look totally different, right? This one has a 3 on top, this one has a 1 on top, this one has a 6 in the bottom, this one has a 2 on the bottom. But at the end of the day, aren't they both the same thing? 0.5? So, just because we're simplifying this doesn't mean that these two things are not still equal. They are. This one's just in simplest form. This one's not. I will prove to you that they are still the exact same thing by graphing it. Okay, so let me erase this and then I'll graph it. Okay, so I'm going to start by typing in the original thing. Y equals, I'm going to clear out what I was doing earlier. It's a fraction, so I need to go to alpha y equals n over d to get it set up for a fraction to be typed in. And then we're going to type that in. X squared plus 11x plus 18 over x plus 9. I'm going to graph it and see what the graph of it looks like. It looks like that. Okay? Pay attention or you're going to get lost. Now I'm going to type in y2. I'm going to type in what I think the simplified version of this is, which I think is n plus 2, so x plus 2. And now watch me graph it. Same thing, right? Did you see how the red covered up the blue? That means we did it right because it's still the same graph. It's just this one's in simplified form. Kind of like 1/2 is the same thing as 3 over 6. It's just simplified form. Now, to know whether negative 9 really is the excluded value, you hit trace, type in a negative 9, and then what do you see? Y equals what? Nothing. Whenever you get y equals blank, that means you are right about your excluded value. There's a hole in the graph at negative 9. The calculators don't show it, but there is. Okay, now let's move on to number 24. Can you do this one by the bubble method? No. The only ones we do with the bubble method are the trinomials that look like this. Does anybody remember how to factor something like this? What method? Greatest common factor. What number can be pulled out of a 10 and a 70? 7 can be pulled out of 10? 10. Now you have to leave what's left. 10 times what is 10m? 1m. And then 10 times what is negative 70? Negative 7. So I factored the top by the GCF method. Now let's look at the bottom. It also has an m minus 7. So before we finish it out, let's find the excluded value. What number could you not plug in the m? A positive 7. Think about it. If you plugged in a positive 7, wouldn't 7 minus 7 make the denominator 0 and then it'd be undefined? So that's my excluded value. Now that I know my excluded value, let's continue simplifying it. I'm going to cross out those, and so the final answer is just 10. Now let's graph both of these and see if we're right. I'm going to graph this first. So y equals, it's a fraction, so I need to set up a fraction by going to alpha y equals n over d and type it in. 10x minus 70 over x minus 7. And then I'm going to graph just 10 in the second, y2. Okay, here comes the first one. There comes the second one. See how it's the same thing? That confirms that we did it right because they're the exact same graph. They're the same thing. This one's just simplified form. Okay, so why don't you take a second and try 25. All right, number 25. Look at the numerator. Look at the numerator. What method do you have to use to factor that? Bubble. Also, guys, I go ahead and kind of look at the denominator and think, I'm probably going to end up canceling out this. So don't you think that means there's an x plus 3 somewhere up here? And what's the other number? Right. Now, because 3 times 7 is 21, 3 plus 7 is 10. Before we finish it out, what is the excluded value? Negative 3. Negative 3. Yes, and on these, they're easy. You can just look at them, but some of them, you have to do a little bit of solving to figure them out. Okay, so now we're going to finish it out. Those cancel each other out, leaving just x plus 7. Now let's graph both of these to make sure they're the same graph, and that will confirm that we did it right. Okay, so y equals, I'm going to clear out what was in there before, and I'm going to set up a fraction by going to alpha y equals n over d, x squared plus 10x plus 21 over x plus 3. And then I'm also in y2, a second equation, I'm going to type in my simplified version of that, x plus 7. Now when I graph it, there's the first one, and here comes the second one, same thing. That confirms that I did it right. I can also confirm that I have the correct excluded value by hitting trace and typing in negative 3. And since it says y equals blank, that means there's a hole in the graph there. That's why we're excluding it. Okay, now let's look at number 26. Can you do anything with that numerator? No. Okay, can you do anything to the denominator? What can you do? Greatest common factor. What is the largest number that comes out of 18 and 36? 18? Okay, when you take the 18 out of it, we have to put back in parentheses what we did not factor out. 18 times what would give me back that 18p? P. And then 18 times what would give me back a positive 36? Positive 2. Now, can anything be crossed out? No. But at this point, we can find the excluded value. What number plugged in would cause that denominator to go to a 0? If you plugged something in here and added 2 to it, what would it? Negative 2. Think about it. If you plug negative 2 right here and added 2, wouldn't it be a 0? And then 0 times 18 is still 0? So your excluded value is negative 2. So you found your excluded value and nothing will cancel out, but you're still not finished because this will reduce even more. Even though you can't cancel out the p plus 2, can't you reduce 27 over 18? Go to your calculator. Type in 27, not right there though, on the main screen. 27 divided by 18, but we don't want to leave it like that. Let's go to math, enter to change it to a fraction. 3 over 2. So 3 over 2, and since there's this down here with that, you got to put it in parentheses. And then we're not going to do it this time, but if you were to graph this one and graph this one, it would be the same graph. Okay, let's see. Why don't y'all try number 22? Can I do anything to that numerator? No. So it stays 20. Can I do anything to the denominator? What can I do? GCF. What is the greatest common factor of 8 and 36? 4. Okay, so now 4 times what would give me back that 8x? 2x. And 4 times what would give me negative 36? Negative 9. Okay, before you could go ahead and finish this one out because you can't really do anything with that 2x minus 9, right? There's nothing to cancel out with it. But 20 over 4 becomes 5. Now let's look at what our excluded value should be. Can anybody just look at that one like we were able to look at this one and this one and this one and know what can't go in there? It's not as easy, right? When it's not as easy just to look at it and know, you set it equal to 0 and you solve it. To do that, what would I do first? Add 9 to both sides. And so then you're left with 2x equals 9. And now what do you do to both sides? Divide by 2. So your excluded value is 9 over 2. Now let's see why. I'm going to type in 2 times 9 over 2 minus 9 and see what I get. So here we go. 2 times 9 over 2, which I'm saying is my excluded value. Oops. And then after that, what is it? minus 9 makes a 0. Okay, 9 over 2 cannot be plugged in for x, because when you plug in 9 over 2 for x, it makes a 0. Let's talk about y. Okay, 2x minus 9. If I were to take 9 over 2 and plug it in right here, isn't that like a 2 over 1 times a 9 over 2? What's 2 times 9? What's 1 times 2? 18 over 2 is, and 9 minus 9 is 0. Okay, so that's why that's the excluded value, and this is the simplified answer. Now let's graph them and make sure it's right, and we'll check our excluded values. So y equals, okay, they're both fractions, so I'm going to have to set both of them up for a fraction. And the first one is 20 over 8x minus 36. And then the second graph is also a fraction, so I need to set it up for one. Oops, I went way down to y9, not that it matters. 5 over 2x minus 9. Okay, now I'm going to graph them. There's the first one. And then here comes my second one, just covering it up. They're the same thing. That confirms that I've simplified it correctly. Oh, also, I didn't confirm that that's the right excluded value. When I hit trace and I type in 9 over 2, I get y equals blank. Okay, because there's a hole in the graph there. That's why we have to exclude it. Okay, number 21. We could go ahead and find the excluded value for this one right away. What could you not plug in for x? Okay, let's plug in negative 30 to see if we get 0. Okay, everybody watch. I'm going to type in 30x, which they're saying negative 30, and then what, cube it? Does that make 0? What's a number that could not be plugged in right here, or it would make the whole thing 0? 0. Think about it. If you cube a 0, you're going to get 0, and if you multiply by 30, you're still going to get 0, right? So the excluded value for this one is 0. Now that we know the excluded value, let's simplify. How do we simplify the numerator? GCF. What is the largest number that will come out of both 35 and 50? 5. Okay, and thank you. This one, they both have at least one x, right? So you can also pull out an x. 5x times what is 35x squared? 7x. And then 5x times what is negative 50x? Negative 10. And then that's over 30x cubed. Is there anything that can just be crossed out? No, but there are things that can be simplified. 7x minus 10 stays. Since it can't be crossed out with another 7x minus 10 down here, you can't do anything to it. But couldn't we reduce this 5 over 30 to 1 over 6? And then what's x to the first divided by x to the third? X to the negative 2, right? But to make it positive, shouldn't it go down here? And then really, do we need that 1 hanging out over here? Nope. So your final answer is 7x minus 10 over 6x squared. If you were to graph it, it would graph right on top of that one. Okay, now turn to page 18. Okay, I'm going to give you a few minutes, and I want you to try 27, 28, 29, and 30. Once you've simplified them, graph them both and check that you did it right, and check for the excluded value.